You're All So Glorious, Chapter 2, Part 10. Um, as the, content warnings as always, social events, parental abuse as always, child abuse. There's social situations. There's horrible social situations in this one. I think it's been a minute. We put these content warnings at the start without actually reading what's ahead, so a few months later, after Lace had started to consistently move around without the use of a wheelchair and the leaves of the trees have started to fade away to browns and oranges, her mother throws a party. It's grand, as it always has been before. Flower arrangements are placed on blank tablets. Soft cloths drape the open dining room. Tables are set out with crisp name cards on each place setting. The party is far smaller this time, though, restricted to perhaps a stark max of 100 people. This still requires extra help, which is hired discreetly. The guest list is smaller, more private. The overall collection of the people arriving seems more foreign, more alien than before. Stranger people for a stranger party. Some seem to glide over the floor like a wavering mirage. Others have strangely colored hair and eyes. Many do not blink. There's a gathering of ivory-haired, dark-eyed women who simultaneously seem to congregate and repel each other, eager to talk and gossip, but also disdainful of the other's company. One of the women Lace recognizes from the last party, Atla, the one who had surveyed Lace and her sibling as if they were a game. She approaches Lace with a half-filled wine glass just before dinner is served. "And how have you been, little daughter?" she says, voice like a husk. It does not match her appearance, which is thin and feminine. Her voice speaks of pain and her own amusement of the fact. "I see your sister is gone and you... different. You'll hardly have to compete for your mother's affection anymore." The pain of Phantom's disappearance is still stark and raw. Lace bristles. "I never had to," she says. "We weren't competing." Atla raises an eyebrow. "And this is something you believe?" "I do," Lace says, running iron through her voice. Whereas Phantom was once her backbone, they exist to support her no longer. "Interesting." Atla lets bemused eyes run over Lace's form. "You hold out faith in your own importance, then?" "I am important," Lace replies, "and I am valued." "That is actually true, you know. You are quite valued. I value you, at any rate." Atla takes a sip from her wine glass. "You won me a bit of money. I'm a gambler, you see, but I like to cast my bets on things I'm wont to win. Rigged bets, or cases with ample evidence in their favor. Perhaps that doesn't make me a very good gambler, but I'm a good winner." Lace can feel the weight of Phantom's non-existent hand on their shoulder, warning her. This woman is dangerous. This woman is cruel, like a colored fishhook. "I'm sure you're very good," Lace replies diplomatically. Atla only smiles. "You don't need to flatter me, girl," she says. "As I said, I'm quite pleased with you. Maria said your soul was weak, but I theorized that it was what was needed to create a perfect daughter. You must be able to be steamrolled, you see. Recast in your mother's own image. If you'd had a strong soul like your sister, you'd be disintegrating, just like them as we speak." Lace stares at her blankly. "But of course, your body accepted your mother's heart quite well. For that, I've won a few euros. Enough to buy myself another boat, perhaps." Atla gives Lace a proud, mocking smile. "I've come to this gala to collect, and attend your mother's party, of course. These little soirees are the highlight of any weaver's calendar." "Will there be a sewing competition?" Lace ventures. "For the weavers." She clarifies quickly enough when Atla only stares at her blankly. Atla blinks before tilting her head back and forth, barking out a jagged crow's call of a laugh. "There will be silk," she says mysteriously, smile as cruel as a wasp's sting. "Didn't you love your sister? You'll enjoy it greatly, I'm sure." Her words only stand to confuse Lace, who furrows her brows and folds her arms uncomfortably in front of her dress. "I'm sure," Lace echoes. "Thank you for your words. I think we are eating dinner soon. I should like to find my seat." and she gracefully bows out of the conversation, letting her feet guide her to the dining room as quickly as manners allow. Although her mother sends her a scathing look that Lace had set down in her marked place far too early, Lace decides that if there was a punishment, it would be a fair trade-off to not entertain Atlas' strange verbiage. When dinner is served, it is served in small courses, several appetizers, several palate cleansers, several entrees. Each plate contains a mere sliver of flavor, a whetting of the appetite against the harsh rock of hunger. Nothing really appeals to Lace. Few things do anymore since everything. Everything has grayed out. Her dress itches. Her shoes are too tight. She wishes to go back to sleep. Many times throughout the gathering, Lace looks up to find one of the guests staring at her, openly and obviously. They don't look away when Lace catches their gaze. They just look all the more fascinated. In the dimmed light, shadows stretching across their faces, they look predatory. They look hungry, like lions on a savanna, paws falling noiselessly to the earth. In turn, Lace finds she has the flighty and frugal appetite of a creature made to be prey. She only picks at the red meat in front of her, pinker and more carefully seared than usual in anticipation of the company. At last, dessert is served. Lace only peripherally notices the excited hum that permeates through the air. She is far too tired to make more in-depth observations. Each servant unveils the plate, whispering quietly to each guest the contents. Bundles in the center of the cool ceramic, a small pile of white, string-like substance, cradles sugared cherries. Streaks of artistic juice smeared the surface surrounding the meal, as if petals of a beautiful flower looming at the stark end of midnight. Lace's servant doesn't whisper anything to her. They just step backwards, cover in hand, before walking out in unison with the rest of the servants. Lace's mother raises a glass of white wine to the audience. "I've found the sweetened cherries bring out the richness of the silk," she says, her voice melodic. "They muffle the finer notes of rebellion, but such things as not fit for consumption. With a bit of sweetness and deference, the final result is just palatable for good company. Please enjoy." Lace furrows her eyebrows at her mother's odd choice in words. Silk. Some sort of dessert. What Adler had mentioned earlier. She looks down at her plate. The food really does look like silk. Perhaps it is some biodegradable substance that's meant to make a statement about the fashion ethic climate of the modern day. It's exactly the sort of statement Lace's mother likes to make. Lofty, but lacking any true meaning. Pulling up the dessert with her fork, Lace examines the ivory strings. They hang limp, chained, stained with cherry juice. Around Lace, the other guests are digging into their meals with gusto. Many have closed their eyes, as if to savor the flavor. They hum in pleasure and smack their lips, the sounds vulgar and harsh in the acoustics-oriented room. They smear the cherry juice across their lips, but it does not seem to be the cherries they are enjoying, but the silk itself, as they suck it up like noodles in a bed of sauce. Lace turns back to her fork. Gingerly, she places the dessert in her mouth. It's not so much a flavor as it is a sensation, like a burst of energy, as if the static electricity from a dry blanket could find a way to access the veins of your throat. It sparks warm to the stomach, sending warm to every corner of Lace's body. A pure, zany sensation. There is a sweet cherry flavor, but it is a far-away aftertaste. The silk is the forefront, an experience in taste and emotion. Lace quickly takes another bite, and then another. She tries to eat primly, but finds herself addicted. She hardly finishes chewing before she takes the next bite. All too soon, she finds her plate empty and her heart full of staticky disappointment. Some of the other guests clearly feel the same way, their forks hanging out of their mouths as if they could withdraw the last bits of flavor from the tangy iron. Others have a glazed look in their eye, as if the energy had overwhelmed them. A few talk amongst themselves in quiet tones. All who do have white hair and dark eyes. Adler is one of them. lips stained a juicy red. She sees Lace staring and waves, fingers curling almost knockingly. Her lips quirk, almost in smile, amused, sardonic. I told you so. Lace quickly looks away. For the coming winter months, Mother moves Lace to a fancy townhouse, closer to a larger city. Gone is the manor and the French countryside. Here is the center of a city, buildings packed close together, with no room to breathe. Ostensibly, the move is to start her secondary years at a real school, although Lace does not know truly why things changed. No more homeschool, no more widow, no more ballet tutor. It's an exceptional relief being sent to school. In some ways, it means Lace's mother hasn't quite yet given up on her. She'd feared it intensely, having been left alone with no tutors for months, and had pictured Phantom eternally rotting in the countryside, no one to keep them company. She is terribly soothed by this development, and trots along to the new household obediently. This new school has bells that move students from class to class, loud, chattering clouds, towering brick buildings, and, apparently, high expectations. It had made Lace nervous. She thinks that Widow had never had high expectations for her at all. She doesn't know if she'll be able to handle truly lofty expectations. What if they leave her behind? What if she is not able to keep up? Where would she go then? What Lace had found, however, is that this so-called high expectations school was easy. The things they were learning, she'd learned perhaps a year ago. Lace's curriculum had been rigorous. Widow had said Lace was behind, and Lace had cried bitter tears. Here, Lace tries to find the point to where she had already been educated. Holding herself up in the school's library, she is able to recognize concepts of her learning all the way until late upper secondary courses. Math, science, history, she's ahead in all of it. Lace stares at the books as if they were lying. She grinds the pages between her fingers. She feels a strange, bubbling anger in her stomach. All those cruel words, and for what? Lace had her starting on calculus right before Lace's 11th birthday. She'd been poking at DNA structures and reciting poems from the 16th century, describing geographic trends and changes, describing chemical processes and physical changes with ease by the time she was 10. And it hadn't been enough. Why? Lace puzzles and puzzles. She wishes to solve it. There must have been a reason. Perhaps these children are stupid, and Lace alone is smart. Perhaps Lace is not good enough. Her punishment, therefore, is to transcend, to become better. She pores over herself for flaw. She finds many, but still cannot understand her shortcoming in an academic sense. She doesn't understand. She watches her mother not look at her, and doesn't understand. Besides the content, school is fun. They play with clay and art sometimes and do choir singing other days. They have plenty of breaks, an hour or so for lunch and several recreation breaks. Lace almost hadn't known what to do with herself during this period. The kids aren't awful. They've mostly formed their own friend groups, but a month into Lace's stay, she's invited over to someone's table during their lunch break with the opener, "I heard your mother's rich." And then she sort of sits quietly. She muses mostly. She doesn't understand what the girls around her are talking about. School and catalogs and fashion and boys. They wear uniforms, pleated plaid skirts that fall below their knees and starched white blouses, saddle shoes with leather patches stitched on the sides. And Lace's clothes had only been bought by her mother's servants, so Lace doesn't understand the fashion aspect. She furthermore thinks that most of the boys look like pugs that have been particularly inbred, but she has the social awareness to keep this opinion to herself. Some girls talk about asking their fathers or mothers for fancy motorbikes and highly bred dogs, fluffy ragdoll cats. Lace doesn't understand that either. They ask her about what she does in her free time. Ballet. What her mother does for work, I don't know. If the white streaks in her hair are dyed, they're not. Where she got them dyed, they're not dyed. Why she dyed them, they're really not. I heard your hair can turn stark white if you're really traumatized, one of the girls says authoritatively. I saw it in a TV show. All of the rest of the girls at the table turn to Lace expectantly. I'm not traumatized, Lace says. She steps her fork into her lunch and rolls her eyes. I don't even know what that means. In truth, she doesn't know why her hair is turning white. It had never before. Then, after she'd moved here, after her surgery, she'd woken up and started seeing streaks in her hair, obvious and prominent against the darkness of the rest of her hair. I think my hairstylist is bleaching the color out of my hair, she told her mother one morning, sitting up straight and trying to appear as confident as possible. She'd gotten her a new hairstylist since coming here, one who had been putting all sorts of chemicals in her hair to remove the kinkiness from the short strands. Lace's mother had wanted her hair straight, so straight has become Lace's hair. After a few hours of chemical treatment had left her skull feeling like it was on fire. It's turning white. Her mother had only briefly glanced up, before looking back down to her breakfast. That's entirely normal for someone like you, is all she says, infuriatingly vague. It's an effect. An effect of what? Lace wanted to ask, but her mother's tone had been slightly annoyed, and so Lace had bowed her head and finished her breakfast in silence. After they'd finished breakfast, her mother had come over to her, pill in hand, disappointment taut and bitterly steeped on her face. These pills are something that came about around a month and a half after Lace's heart surgery. She'd complained of lethargy and weakness, finding that in ballet she is no longer able to hold finely tuned poses for as long as she once had been. Her feet and knees would collapse underneath her. Her exhaustions would not let her focus on school. She felt like her skin was peeling, coming apart like yarn in a poorly made sweater. The next morning, her mother had approached her with a pill after breakfast. She'd looked severe, disappointed. You lasted longer than the others, at any rate, she'd muttered. Her method to give Lace the pill was strange. While Lace swallows the medication, she insists that her hands be on Lace's back, cold fingertips against Lace's shoulder blades. It always makes Lace feel as though she's choking, as if she's short of breath, like her soul's being run throughout her body, like her heart's expanding into her lungs and suffocating her. It's a hard feeling to quantify. We'll see if we can't try to expand your tolerance until you need more medication. Lace isn't entirely sure that's how medicine works, but when she asks about it, her mother says, Do you not want it at all? And so Lace bows her head and keeps her thoughts to herself. Such a thing has only become more common as her mother spends more time around Lace. After she'd been given the medication, Lace felt better, more whole. Now, though, her mother always looks viciously disappointed whenever Lace shamefully drags her feet to tell her that she cannot properly function if she is not supplemented. It's such a terrible face that Lace becomes incredibly reluctant to come to her about it at all. She learns to work around it, except when times that her entire body simply gives out on her. Like this particular morning when Lace asks about her hair. The evening before, Lace had collapsed during ballet. Her knees had become shaky, and then simply ceased to continue supporting her altogether. Can you go another day? Her mother asked sternly. The pill is pinched beneath bloodless fingertips. You said you felt like you were only shredding in your legs. Can you not wait until it is also spread to your torso, your arms? Why must your weakness define you? In truth, it's all over. But Lace has found that the things that she finds impossible to control should not be confessed to, especially not to her own mother. My legs are necessary for ballet, she says softly instead. I fear that I cannot dance without them. Her mother scoffs, but she gives Lace the pill, taking her normal position behind Lace's back, hands between Lace's shoulder blades. The wind leaves Lace's lungs all at once, and she can feel herself being drawn tighter, every inch of her body coming back together like the strings of a polyester children's bag. And after, she feels better. She feels whole. Besides this new feature, Lace's entry semester at this new city and school is mostly good. It's very pretty. Crowded in a way that Lace is not used to, but clean and close. Ivy sprawling over sun-worn buildings. The teachers at her school, while stern, are mostly kind. They do not hit students' knuckles, and they smile sometimes at the students when they get answers right. Few are cruel when a student gets an answer wrong. No one is compelled to answer. Test days are marked well in advance, and nothing is a surprise. Nor are many of the questions designed in a theoretical and reason-based manner. They are all quite straightforward. Although Lace is familiar with most of the concepts being taught, the teachers go over them very slowly and thoroughly, in a matter easy and clear to understand. After class, Lace goes straight to ballet. She's there for a good while, late into the evening. That's still as backbreaking as she knows it to be. The teachers are just as strict, just as vicious with their commentary as her old tutor, but in some ways ballet is better as well. Their attention isn't just focused on Lace, but split between many students. Their critiques, Lace finds, are fair. They seek to improve their students, rather than break them down, like Lace had sometimes felt her previous ballet teacher had tried to do. Perhaps this is all along what teachers were meant to do. While Lace still doesn't enjoy ballet, continues very much to hate the way her body needed to bend and the smile that had plastered itself on her face for every second of every practice, it is no longer nauseatingly terrible. And in a cheerful turn of events, when Lace's first recital comes at the end of the semester, she is chosen for a leading role for their company's small junior production. Her Lace doesn't attend any of the 3 nights of the production, despite the fact that Lace had managed to move through each one without a single mistake. And Lace knows she'd gotten an invitation. Each of those nights, Lace waits until the janitors have started to drag their brooms and mops from storage closets to see if her mother could perhaps have been lost in the crowd. She's not. Lace walks home by herself. It is only this routine, this necessity to go to school and ballet and the pressure to succeed at the cost of all else, that keeps her together. It is only that she'd left the country manor that Lace finds her every waking thought isn't consumed with phantom, with her strange and misty childhood, with her abstract terror about the strange affliction that has taken hold over her body. There is both disease and puberty wrecking her body, and Lace finds she has the tolerance for neither. Her first semester at school passes just like that, a blurry mix of stark loneliness, unfounded dread, and sometimes a bit of joy, whenever one of Lace's friends said something a bit funny, or she'd gotten another good grade on her exam. At the end of May, Lace's mother comes back, making an appearance for the last few weeks of school. Lace, who had once again grown used to life without her, suddenly finds herself walking on pins and needles once more. Mother is distracted, gaze hardly even sharp when giving Lace her medication. She ducks in and out of the townhouse, mouth puckered every time she looks down at her tablet. Lace's dull comprehension of the world around her sharpens when her mother is in the room. She notices it all. She thinks of all the threats, and she thinks of Phantom, and she desperately fears being left behind. One day, right at the beginning of the dawning summer, Mother walks into Lace's room. School had just released, grades were posted. Lace's were nearly perfect. She'd hardly needed to try and had told her lunch friends that exactly when they'd asked how her grade had come out so good. They'd not like that answer. "Get up," Mother says. Lace is quick about following the instruction. "We will be going to a gymnastics meet this afternoon. It is at the behest of a dear friend of mine." She spits the word out of her mouth like they're poison. Lace refrains her questions, but she'd never been to a gymnastics meet before. It's not a sport she'd thought about much. She doesn't know many of her mother's friends either. Just Adler and a few other strange, white-haired women and uncanny men. But none of it has been a good experience. Her stomach wrings itself inward, like a wet rag. Critically, Mother surveys Lace, head to toe. "Wear your yellow dress," she orders. "The pale one with the ribbon trim. This can be a subtle debut for you. Lace does not like that dress. She finds it itchy, and she does not think she looks good in the color. Still, she obediently takes it and goes into her bathroom and slides it on, pulling at the collar a few times until she feels as though she is no longer being choked.